Before you relax too much, one small warning. During the next few moments, the world will disappear. Please do not attempt to hold it together. People have been trying that for centuries, and look how everyone tired is. And I mean, not that the world as you understand it will disappear. It is much more stranger. The feeling that all of this was already here will disappear. That is, everything is already assembled and stored somewhere outside your eyes, waiting for you to understand it. And perhaps the room is not a box you entered. Perhaps the room is what seeing looks like from the inside. And perhaps your body is not inside the world at all. So you are about to move through a hypnotic collision of psychedelic journey, fractured realities, suspicious wisdom, and several pointers that may quietly crawl beneath language and blow a little hole through your mind. Relax. There is no world. There is no out there. Only this sound arriving. Because future may be a memory facing the wrong direction, and the present may be far too small to contain anything except everything. The current world has people who are not currently in the room, and problems that do not exist until you remember to suffer from them. And so now you can also relax existentially. This journey is not asking you to solve the world. It is asking what remains when the world you have spent your entire life solving turns out to be a picture in your mind, a mental map, and it can never be anything else but that. And now you can relax existentially too, because this journey is not asking you to solve the world. It is asking what remains when the world you have spent your entire life solving turns out to be a picture in your mind, a mental map that can never be anything else but that. Then perhaps even death is frightening only because you imagine an enormous universe continuing somewhere without you. But what if the world cannot continue without you? What if you and the world are not as separated as you thought? What if every time you open your eyes, existence is caught creating itself and quickly pretends it had been there the whole time? So perhaps life feels heavy sometimes because you believe you are a small, tiny person trapped inside something gigantic and huge and already built. But perhaps you are not inside the world. There is no world. There is no out there, out there. And this part of tonight's journey comes from my writing about the procedural game, which you can find in my book Wanting Illusion, that is about how to want properly. So now, to make the world disappear, we have to borrow something very specific from the world of digital games. Not as a metaphor, not as a philosophy, but as a piece of technology that quietly changed how games are made. And without most people realizing it, exposed a completely different logic of how worlds can exist. Okay, so here is the thing most people don't know, and once you see it, you genuinely can't unsee it. Not all games are built the way you think they are. In fact, the way most people imagine games working, where the digital world already exists and your avatar just moves around inside it. There is only one very specific design choice, and not even the most interesting one. The alternative is so counterintuitive that even some hardcore gamers often don't realize it's happening. Most people assume a game world is just there, like a movie set. Someone builds it, fills it with stuff, presses save, and then you walk around inside it. Roads exist whether you drive on them or not, or buildings are standing there long before you enter them, and enemies are waiting behind the doors whether you open those doors or not. The world is finished before you ever touch it, and there are just different scenarios you are entering and uncovering what's already being made. And for a long time, that's exactly how games worked. And that model trained people because it carries a specific logic. The world exists first, action comes second. Learn the map and then move. Understand the terrain first and then commit. So if you gather enough information, you can reduce risk. So safety actually comes from knowledge in this model. But then developers ran into a wall, a very boring, very technical wall. Storage limits, memory limits, file sizes getting absurdly huge. You couldn't just keep building bigger and bigger worlds by hand forever. And this is where someone had a completely unhinged idea that turned out to be brilliant. What if we didn't store the world at all? What if instead of shipping a map, we shipped a machine that makes maps? And that's where procedural generation comes from. And games like Minecraft or No Man's Sky or Diablo are built exactly like this. Nothing exists in advance. Nothing is revealed by thinking harder, and the world only appears when you move. And this is the part that people really struggle to grasp at first, because it breaks a basic assumption how reality is supposed to work. In a procedural game, the world does not exist in advance. Not hidden, not off screen, it is not waiting. It's genuinely just not there. And what exists instead is a set of rules, algorithms, or probabilities, or constraints that can produce new scenes, but only when they are triggered. So even the game, or whoever created the game, does not know what's ahead of you until you actually move. It can't know because there is nothing to know. There is no world. There is no out there. And the moment you take a step, the system is forced to decide what should exist there, and it generates it in real time. Terrain, structures, encounters, rewards, whatever the game uses, and it's calculated on the spot based on the rules and on what has already happened so far. So before that step, there is no unfinished version of the world sitting somewhere in storage. There is just absence. And the system is ruthless about this. It will not generate anything just in case. It will not reassure you. It will not preview outcomes to make you feel safer. It's lazy in the best possible way. No input, no output. No movement, no world. You can stand there forever, perfectly calm, perfectly prepared, perfectly optimized, and the game will give you absolutely nothing. Not as a punishment, but because there is nothing for it to respond to. And this is why procedural games feel so strange if you expect the old model. You keep trying to look ahead and there is nothing to see. You keep trying to predict something, or you keep waiting for clarity, and the system just doesn't care. Not because it's mysterious or testing you, but because clarity you are waiting for hasn't been computed yet. It literally does not exist. And so here is the flip that really messes with people once they see it. In this kind of system, understanding comes after action, not before. You don't move because you understand what will happen. You understand what happens because you moved and saw what the system generated in response. You want clarity? You have to trigger it. You want feedback? You have to act. You want the world to reveal itself? You have to force it to exist. Sorry if you are really, really good at preparation forever. This also means prediction is mostly fake. You can know the rules, sure. You can know the probabilities and constraints, but you cannot know what will happen next in any concrete way, because the next thing hasn't been created yet. Even two players can make the same move and get different outcomes because the system incorporates randomness, accumulated history, and internal state. So the world remembers where you have been and it builds it from there. And from a technical perspective, this is absolutely elegant. Instead of storing massive worlds you just store logic. Instead of fixed outcomes, you get responsiveness. And the world stops being an object and becomes a process. Do you see where I'm going with this? It's not something you enter, it's something that starts running when you do. It's no longer you versus the world, but you as the world. Not in a "that makes me a god" way. I'm pointing to a fact about experience. You never deal with the world, only with what shows up when you act. Contact, not metaphysics required. And here is the part most people miss completely. Procedural games do not reward waiting. Waiting doesn't make you safer. Waiting doesn't reveal more information. Waiting doesn't preserve option. Waiting just freezes the system. Like nothing updates, nothing clarifies, just nothing unfolds, nothing meaningful. So the game only starts when you move. Not when you are ready, not when you feel confident, not when you've finally figured it out. When the system is forced to generate something because you acted. There is no world. There is no out there. So, what would you do if there were no world? Where would you go if nowhere existed before your foot arrived? And what would you choose if the future were not ahead of you, but curled up inside the choice, waiting to become the next room? And which door would you open if the room on the other side had not decided what it was yet? And what if the question is not waiting for your answer? What if the answer is waiting for you to become the question? This is where the whole thing stops being a cool technical curiosity and starts quietly pulling the floor out from under everything this trip is about. Because once you really understand what procedural means, you can no longer pretend it's just a design trick from gaming, rather than a completely different logic of how a world can exist at all. And the same principle applies when we talk about our real world. You know, humans, relationships, work, money, health, reputation, direction. The system only becomes procedural when one move creates conditions that make the next move possible or impossible. Until that happens, nothing is unfolding. Nothing is generating or updating. It's just looping. This is the part people miss so completely that they never even realize they're missing it. In a procedural world, thinking does not advance the game. It doesn't move us to the next level. It doesn't unfold anything. It doesn't reveal what comes next. And it doesn't even count as standing still in a meaningful way. It's just internal motion inside a frozen system, looping. So we can think about something forever. We can imagine futures in extraordinary detail or discuss them with friends. We can write about them, journal about them, emotionally process why we haven't moved toward them yet. Even build a sophisticated identity around being someone who is getting ready. And all of that can happen indefinitely without a single procedural step being taken. Nothing really changes. No state updates. No information appears that actually makes a difference. And the system has nothing to respond to. So the world only exists once we step into it. And most people assume that the next level of their life exists already as some potential somewhere ahead of them waiting, and that our job is to figure out how to reach it. They believe there is a better world, more aligned, more alive, and more true. And that if we could just think correctly, plan carefully enough, heal enough, regulate enough, or finally understand what's wrong with us, we would be able to enter it. But a procedural world does not work like that. Your next level does not pre-exist. It is not hidden or delayed. It is not withheld from you until you become worthy of already. It literally has not been rendered. And it will not be rendered by thinking about it. It will be generated by the step you take. And more precisely, it will be generated by the movement you are acting from, not the outer world you are imagining yourself moving toward. The system does not respond to fantasies, intentions, visions, or plans. It responds to actuality. Where you are, what you're doing, what you are avoiding, what you keep postponing, or what remains untouched because you're still thinking about it. That is the input, and you cannot hide, because the world is not separated from you. This is why people feel profoundly stuck while being unbelievably busy. They are thinking, processing, optimizing, planning, talking about it, refining, preparing, and sometimes obsessively, but none of it enters a chain of actions that actually changes the state of the system. Nothing new can be generated from that. Only looping. From the system's point of view, nothing is happening like that. Just endless loops and simulations. And this is also why clarity never arrives first. And here is the liberating part about clarity. Clarity is not a prerequisite. You actually don't need to be clear before you act. It is feedback. And feedback only appears after the system updates. And the system only updates when something moves. Until then, there is no world in any meaningful sense. Only a simulation of one running inside your head, populated by predictions, imagined consequences, rehearsed failures, or hypothetical futures, while confusing it for the real terrain underneath your feet. Which leads to the most uncomfortable part of this journey. There is no world. There is only thinking about a world. There is no world. There is no out there. A procedural world is not something you orient yourself inside of. It is something that appears because you act. And until you do, you are not navigating reality. You are navigating projections. And no matter how vivid, serious, or emotionally charged those projections feel, procedurally, they do not exist. It's a simulation. A head trip. So the moment you take one action that cannot be undone, cannot be optimized in advance, cannot be explained away, the system responds immediately. Not with answers, but with friction, with opportunity, or with constraint. With a door, or a wall, or a consequence. And that response is the world. And until that happens, no matter how much we've understood, nothing has begun. And our desire remains untouched. Think about the last time you finally sent a message and you'd been drafting it for a long time, for days or weeks. So before you pressed send, there were 10 possible futures in your head. And after you pressed it, there was only one. Whatever came back. The world did not reveal itself while you were thinking. It revealed itself the second you acted. And the reply, warm, cold, delayed, or indifferent, was not hiding somewhere waiting to be discovered. It only existed because you triggered it. No theory, just recognition. And from here, the procedural isn't destination. It's whatever emerges next without the overlay of explanation. And that's the uncomfortable part. The sense of the world you're trying to navigate is not something you lost access to. It's something you learned to believe in. There is no world. There is no out there. But don't take my word for it. Now I'll let you choose your delusion, because apparently humans need one. You can believe there is a big solid world out there, and you are a tiny separate particle walking around inside it, constantly trying to orient, optimize, protect, and improve yourself inside something that only lives up or lives as a map in your head. And that belief conveniently explains why you feel anxious, late, behind, and tired all the time. Or you can notice that the world can ever, or that the world only ever is when you are unfolding into existence with each of your steps, simply because there is nothing else. No need to try to figure out if the world still exists, if you are not, as every attempt will be draining and never satisfying, just like everything the self-identity does. In the first option, you wake up every morning already inside a problem. In the second option, you wake up and something happens. One requires management, and the other requires response. In the big world model, you're constantly preparing for a future that exists only as imagination, while ignoring what's right in front of you. And in the other model, storyless things are the only things that count, because they are the only ones that actually happen. Believing in a separate world makes you behave like an employee in your own life, waiting for instructions or permission or clarity or safety or performance reviews. And dropping that belief feels irresponsible until you notice how a little actually ever moved under the old system. If you are truly just a particle inside a massive world, it makes perfect sense that you'd feel powerless or superior or overwhelmed and obsessed with self-improvement or domination, because tiny particles are always trying to become less tiny. And the alternative is deeply annoying. The world isn't something you're in. It is something that reorganizes based on what you do. No one wants this at first, because it removes your right to complain without acting. But the most absurd part is that both options feel normal, until you notice that one produces endless thinking and no change, while the other produces change without needing to understand anything first. because it's only your actions, not thinking about it, that correctly reflect whether you are reacting to a story or responding to reality. And you don't have to choose the second option because it's true. You'll choose it because the first one quietly turns you into a very serious, very busy, very thoughtful person who somehow never gets to do what they really want to. So the procedural game isn't philosophy, it is a crime scene. What we call the world is just the oldest management story we've ever swallowed, installed so early we forgot it was optional. And once it's in, everything becomes heavy, explainable, and rehearsed. And we stop moving and start supervising ourselves in our own lives. Nothing is broken or missing. We didn't lose access to reality. We buried it under a story that promised safety and delivered paperwork. And here is the uncomfortable part we don't get to avoid anymore. If there is no world holding everything together for us, then waiting is pointless. Complaining is pointless. Preparing is pointless. There is nothing to manage our way out of. Something only happens when you move, and that's the whole game. We cannot predict our moves like in chess, and the prize is not at the end of it, but in each movement. Aliveness is the only real currency. Everything else is a substitute economy. Everything else is just us standing very still, thinking very hard, and calling it life. And most importantly, hesitation hardens the map, but movement dissolves it and exposes that it was never real to begin with.
I saw my shadow glitch and wave me goodbye. The mirror said hi, but forgot how to lie. My brain plays movies I never direct. The credits roll early, what did I expect? Don't trust your thoughts, they're just special effects. Cheap CGI in a world of defects. The story looks solid, but it's paper thin. A cartoon you're stuck in, but you're not the skin. I caught a memory sneaking out the back door where face disappears when you stop the test. Don't trust your thoughts, they're just special effects. Cheap CGI in a world of defects. The story looks solid, but it's paper thin. A cartoon you're stuck in. But you're not the skin. But you're not the skin. The real burns out. The screen goes black. And the dream keeps rolling. No one to track. Don't trust your thoughts, they're just special effects. Cheap CGI in a world of defects. The story looks solid, but it's paper thin. A cartoon you're stuck in. But you're not the skin. So melt in the walls, let the dream misbehave. You were never the actor, just light in a cave. The mind makes the thunder, the silence is true. And the movie was never depending on you. Don't trust your thoughts, they're just special effects.